Mike was the youngest of the young people, and he had the longest blast of the shofar. And so it was very, very entertaining, and it was a blessing to watch. So with that in mind, we're still saying hi to YouTube, especially Miss Katerina, who hasn't been feeling well this week, so we're hoping you're going to get better soon. Brandon from South Sudan, who watches more faithfully than I think anybody here, and we should have Faith sit right here, just so he can see her face instead of mine. I should trade places with Faith.
Oh, it's okay. He gets sick of seeing me.
Okay, he can see you anyway. But, so anyway, it's good to have everybody here. We're going to go ahead, and when we want to do conversation, we're going to do the best we can with the 4 microphones to pass them around. There's one on each bench. And as the conversation gets going further and further, people start getting off work and stuff. Don't be surprised if we fill up the seats and we go to a second row and that kind of thing. It usually gets bigger as it goes on. I know it can be a little nerve-wracking to talk into a microphone and that kind of thing. We probably could turn it down just maybe a touch. Think? Yeah. As long as they can hear it. Really, we don't need to hear each other, but it's a huge help for those on YouTube to be able to hear each of the conversational comments. So even if it's like, no, wait, he didn't mean that. Make sure you raise your hand, get a microphone, and then you make that statement so that YouTube doesn't get lost when a whole argument gets started over something that they didn't catch on a microphone. So, all right, does anybody remember what we're supposed to study before we studied Jonah on Yom Kippur? Na, na, na. Na, 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 na. Yes, Leviticus 18. Good. And for those of you that might think, well, wait a second, is he just making that up? I can show you in the Tikkun that it is the Haftarah portion. No, it's the afternoon reading portion for the Torah portion. For Yom Kippur is Leviticus 18. And I'll warn you, this is an unpleasant chapter to read. It's not pleasant if you read this chapter at home by yourself. It's even less pleasant when you read it in mixed company on Yom Kippur. But it is to remind us that apart from Torah and apart from God's instruction and apart from His plan that leads to life and wholeness and wellness and truth, if we don't stay grounded in that, then this chapter describes the direction we're inclined to go if left to our own devices. If it's just a live and let live philosophy, do whatever you want, that as long as it doesn't hurt somebody else, that path will lead to chapter 18 of Leviticus.
You're saying the Bible is not woke?
The Bible is a red pill, not woke.
Okay, both you guys need to have a microphone when you want to chit-chat with each other. That's why I put one close to Alan, because he's always got comments, but got to keep that microphone close for Alan. So the question is, so the Bible is not woke. Well, it describes what happens if you go woke, and
Just go broke.
and you will go broke. Yes. And we're gonna stop, and anytime we're reading, someone can just, hit the stop button and get a microphone and say, wait a second, can we talk about that one? Why does it say it that way? Or what would a person have to think that they have to be told not to do that? All right. Leviticus 18. I was going to let Lev start, but he would be at the end of the chapter before I even figured out where he was at. Read it slow. Read it slow, and you read a few verses, and try to read it slow. We'll do an interpretation of the tongue if necessary. But
Vayedaber Adonai al Moshe, speak to the Israelites and say to them, I am the Lord your God. You must not do as they do in Egypt, where you used to live, and you must not do as they do in the land of Canaan, where I am bringing you. Do not follow their practices. You must obey my laws and be careful to follow my decrees. I am the Lord your God. Keep my decrees and laws, for the man who obeys them will live by them. I am the Lord.
Amen.
No one is to...
Wait. Let's just ponder that. Does that make sense to everybody? This is, for some of you, this is your very first time to do a Yom Kippur, so I don't want to race past any speed bumps if there were any. That set well with everybody? Probably not new information for a lot of us, but yeah,
Keep the word of the Lord? What is this? I've never heard this.
one of the things that you'll understand after doing this Torah walk for a number of years is it only took I can't even remember what, if you had just walked the straight route, it would have taken the Israelites, I think, about a week to get from Egypt to the Promised Land. If they had just taken the most direct route and walked up the coast, it would have taken them about a week, maybe 2 weeks at the most. But it ends up taking them 40 years to make the journey, and you guys know all the reasons why. But it took them 40 years to leave Egypt. But it took 400 years to get Egypt to leave them, because they took with them their practices, the traditions, the foods, the gods they worshipped, the way they worshipped, the days they worshipped on. Those were the things that they were eager to go back to every time they hit a speed bump of their own. So this is God warning them that you're leaving Egypt. Don't do the things you learned there. You're going to Canaan. Don't pick up any new habits on your way. And when you get there, stay true to my word. That's the opening paragraph.
He said there are hard-headed people and they don't know my way, so he vowed in his wrath.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Oh, sorry. He said that generation was a hard-headed people, and he vowed that they would not dwell to see his holy land.
Right. All right.
Or, excuse me, live to dwell in his holy land.
I'm going to pass the mic to Faith. Do you want to start reading from verse 6?
None of you shall approach to any that is near of kin to him to uncover their nakedness. I am the Lord. The nakedness of thy father or the nakedness of thy mother shalt thou not uncover. She is thy mother, thou shalt not uncover her nakedness. The nakedness of thy father's wife shalt thou not uncover. It is thy father's nakedness. The nakedness of thy sister, the daughter of thy father, or daughter of thy mother, whether she be born at home or born abroad, even their nakedness thou shalt not uncover. The nakedness of thy son's daughter, or thy daughter's daughter, or even their nakedness thou shalt not uncover, for theirs is thine own nakedness. The nakedness of thy father's wife's daughter, begotten of thy father, she is thy sister, thou shalt not uncover her nakedness. Thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy father's sister, she is thy father's near kinswoman. Thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy mother's sister, for she is thy mother's near kinswoman. Thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy father's brother, thou shalt not approach to his wife, she is thine aunt. Thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy daughter-in-law, she is thy son's wife. Thou shalt not uncover her nakedness, thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy brother's wife, it is thy brother's nakedness. Thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of a woman and her daughter, neither shalt thou take her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter to uncover her nakedness, for they are near kinswomen, it is wickedness. Neither shall they take a wife to her sister to
What verse are you on?
18.
Okay, let's stop. That was in my Bible, that was a paragraph. Let's stop at 16. Anybody have thoughts and comments on what uncovering someone's nakedness is?
The nakedness that they're speaking of here is different than the nakedness of Adam and Eve. In which way?
It's different in the way that when they were first naked in the garden, they were pure. There was nothing, basically there was nothing defiled about them. They made themselves defiled by coming to understand the difference between evil and good, which did not exist as a distinction before they ate the fruit. Also, as it says in the good book, because, you know, they're your relatives. So that makes it a little different.
So Adam and
I think I took the question that question could actually have multiple meanings. There's multiple layers to that question. So
Because the word nakedness in Genesis has different meaning to what the English word nakedness means.
So one way I would answer the path Lev was going down, that when Adam and Eve discovered their nakedness, it was after they had eaten from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And so prior to that, I'm sorry? Yeah. Yes, after they disobeyed. And so the nakedness before eating and the nakedness after eating were two very different things. The nakedness before, they didn't even realize they were naked. They didn't have anything to compare it to. It was just, you said, no defilement. It was just purity and that. But I don't think that's your question.
My question is feathered in the way on what the word means, actually.
With to have sexual relationships with your own relatives, interfamily type relationships.
Right. Eventually it gets to incestuous and things like that, just relationships. Go ahead.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Whenever you're reading in all context, it's always interesting because people just pull out little blips here and there and don't read the fullness of it. But if you go back to what Lev was reading, in the beginning, it was the activities that they were doing in Egypt. It wasn't that they just saw them. They were actively pursuing. They were actively bringing that into their household. So what they were doing in Pharaoh's house, let's do in our house. So there was all of these, like Adam and Eve watched. They were watching Adonai. They were looking at the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So they were watching it, and then it became an activity. And it rewrote the word. Eve said, oh, I can touch it, or I shouldn't touch it, but that was adding to the word. So every time you read throughout coming out of Egypt, it's, okay, what was added to us? How do we separate from that so that because Peter, walking on water, he saw Yeshua. He had his eyes fixed on Yeshua. And then as he looked at his environment, he started to sink. So then he became engaged in the activity of sin, not keeping our eyes on what is good, what is clean and wholesome, and setting, okay, that house we don't want anything to do with. So I understand like the activity of ancestral sin, but they're sexual sins, either with your family member, which is horrendous, or in a violent, what we see in Egypt, so is the engaging. So as soon as Eve touched the fruit, it instantly changed her appearance. She did not look like the daughter of the Most High anymore. And then you see with Peter walking on water, he's not engaging with Yeshua. So he was engaging with the father of lies, one that was deceiving, that would bring him into a fear. He feared his environment instead of fearing Adonai alone. So when you come into these, what's the opposite? Everyone always says, what's the opposite of love is hate. That's not true. The opposite of love is fear. And I was studying the Hebrew, and to have that fear of the Lord, you will love him. And Adam and Eve were like, well, I want to be like God. So they were opening up the fear of not knowing. They didn't hate Adonai. They just had this fear. So these activities, I have to do what I'm seeing. So that's what we're seeing on the news, or we're hearing in the woke communities or in the colleges. I need to do that because I'm going to fear I'm going to be isolated off. I'm going to be, torn out of the house that I was raised in. So there's that vulnerability and nakedness. You see things different. And, well, that's all I have to say.
Nope. So, nakedness is, like my mother was saying, vulnerability. When you're in a naked state, you are bare to everything around you. you're so vulnerable. It's like exposing a secret. Don't expose the secrets of someone else if it's private like that. And obviously, the crimes of secrets be revealed, but to expose someone's vulnerability is, in my book, wrong.
So that got me wondering just if they're the same word or not. So in Genesis 2, when it says they're both naked, that's arom. And I don't know if that's a different definition, but arom being just being nude versus in Leviticus, it's erva, which is like shame and uncleanliness, and what else do we have in there? Yeah, just literally, especially the pudenda, I don't know what that means, but more of like disgrace and being blemished. So they are two different words being used.
I'm going to take you guys back to Genesis in a different chapter, chapter 9, a post-flood encounter that you can join with me. Starting in verse 18. The sons of Noah who went out from the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham is the father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noah, and the whole earth was populated by them. Noah, a farmer, was the first to plant a vineyard. He drank so much of the wine that he got drunk, and he lay uncovered in his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father shamefully exposed, went out and told his two brothers. Shem and Japheth took a cloak, put it over both their shoulders, and walking backward, went in and covered their naked father. Their faces were turned away so that they did not see their father lying there shamefully exposed. When Noah awoke from his wine, he knew what his youngest son had done to him. He said, "Cursed be Canaan. He is a servant of servants to his brothers." Then he said, "Blessed be Adonai, the God of Shem. Canaan will be their servant. May God enlarge Japheth. He will live in the tents of Shem, but Canaan will be their servant." And after the flood, Noah lived 350 years. In all, Noah lived 950 years. Then he died. If you understand that story through the context of Leviticus 18, I forget the precise one, and I've got the translation that doesn't use the phrase nakedness. It says sexual relations in my translation, which is not as accurate as the translations that use nakedness.
While you're looking that up, it does.
Yep.
It is the erva. It is the same term as in Leviticus 18.
I think in verse 8, can you read verse 8 in the other translation?
You are not to uncover the nakedness of your father's wife, for it is your father's nakedness.
It is your father's nakedness. So, who would be described as naked in Noah's story if somebody had sex with Noah's wife? Whose nakedness would be exposed? Noah's nakedness. So going back to that story, I'll give you the Troy version of what was going on. Noah got so drunk that he passed out. And while he was passed out, his son Ham went into his father's tent and had sexual relations with his mother. That uncovered Noah's nakedness. That brought shame and disgrace to Noah. When Noah he wakes up and he discovers what's happened, he knew immediately what his youngest son had done. The other brothers were filled with horror of what just occurred. And they took a cloak and they walked in backwards to cover up their mother and their younger son, who were not ashamed of what they were doing. And when Noah woke up and he realized what had just taken place, did he curse Ham? Who did he curse? The child of that engagement. That's who Canaan was. Canaan was the offspring of that incestuous relationship between Ham and his mother. And so, even though we didn't learn this in Egypt, is kind of what I'm telling you. This Leviticus 18 thing, we didn't even learn that in Egypt. This is something we learned directly from the Ark, when you just had 8 righteous people. We don't know about the wives so much, but so 5 righteous people that God would select for this. And before we've even gone to repopulating the earth, I believe this is the PG-13 version of how to describe how things got bad when Noah and his wife and their kids came off of the ark. Comments?
So,
Comments?
when he went out and shouted that his father's nakedness was exposed, was that to get his brother's attention, to go and defile her?
Another way of reading, he drank so much that he got drunk and lay uncovered in his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, again, at the time it happened, there was no child yet, but the father of Canaan saw his father shamefully exposed, and he went out and told his 2 brothers. That would be the same way of saying he wasn't ashamed of what he had done with his mother, and his brothers became aware of it. That's what I believe that story's telling you. Well, you have to use a microphone.
Sorry about that. He wanted to usurp the authority that Noah had over the household. He wanted to be the papa of the household, the ruler, whatever, and so he was trying to do what our government does.
So sorry, I'm trying to phrase my question. If Ham, went and told his brothers what he'd done, did he go back and lay with his mom and then they went and did that? Or?
I always would say this, that I wasn't there, so I can't give you a eyewitness testimony. But if Dolly was here, she could have told you. That was poor. Yeah, where's Roger? He's almost old enough to have been there. But that's the sense of it, is that they were probably making enough noise. There was enough. They brought enough attention to themselves that the 2 other brothers realized something needed to be done to put an end to this and to cover it up. Not to cover it up and to make it not happen, but to put a stop to it and bring some clothing to the situation. And we're going to go to Leviticus.
I have one question
Yeah, go
about
ahead.
that. So is that so with how to ask this question? Is that how the spirit of Cain came through?
Canaan.
Yes.
Yeah, that then becomes the offspring that dwells in the land of Canaan, and it becomes the offspring that God says you have to purge them. And it also helps explain when God says to Joshua, go in and don't let any survive. It's because they're the offspring of this. And there's a generational curse that goes with that. These were a very deprived and sexually immoral group of people that possessed the land of Canaan. That, going along with what Miss Anna was saying, is Satan wanted to corrupt the land. He wanted to bring something in that would prevent God's promises to Abraham to eventually be fulfilled. So Satan had a plan like, hey, if this will be my blocking force. I'm going to put a real evil people in that land, and they'll be very difficult to dispossess. And the only way to dispossess them entirely would be to kill them all and not let any of their line continue. And so sometimes that's the hard truth of verses that we have a hard time explaining to our Christian friends who say, well, the God of the Old Testament is not a merciful God, and look what he said to do to the Canaanites, and look what he said to do to the Amorites and things like that. Well, we weren't there. We didn't know how bad things were, and if God said the only way to put a stop to this is to eliminate the people who were born into it, then God is sovereign, and I don't have a problem having a sovereign, just, and merciful God all in one. But more comments, more questions?
Well, just to defend the traditional understanding of it, I mean, it does say he lay uncovered. So was he naked and his wife were naked then?
Let's read, Christy, read Leviticus chapter 20:11.
One verse.
Yeah.
If a man lies with his father's wife and has uncovered his father's nakedness, both of them should surely be put to death, and their blood should be on them.
So, that's what should have happened. If somebody has gone and slept with, if Ham sleeps with his mother, then Ham has uncovered his father's nakedness. So the possibility that Noah passed out from drinking with all his clothes on, I think is true. The nakedness referred to in your reading is in line with Leviticus chapter 20, verse 18. If your son goes in and sleeps with your wife, your son has uncovered your nakedness. And that's the phrasing that Genesis chapter,
Yes, 21 says when he drank some of its wine, he became drunk and lay uncovered inside his tent. At least that's NIV version. But he was uncovered too, at a minimum, right?
no. When you go have sex with your mom, you have uncovered your father's nakedness. That's what Leviticus chapter 20 says.
Right.
Even if he's in a different state and has all his clothes on, you have uncovered your father's nakedness. That's what Leviticus 20 is telling us.
Right, but what is Genesis 9:21 telling us? That's the question,
That
right?
Noah's
When-
son had sex with his mother and uncovered Noah's nakedness.
That's 22. I'm saying 21 is when he talking about Noah, drank some of the wine, he became drunk and lay uncovered inside his tent. So he's laying uncovered. What does that uncovered mean?
I believe that's the description of what took place while he was passed out. His son had sex with his wife and uncovered Noah's nakedness, even though Noah's clothes never came up.
If I may, I think it's what he's saying is, and he drank of the wine and was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent. I think he became so drunk that his drunkenness made him uncovered, like he was there, therefore not aware of what was happening. And so his wife being drunken or his wife being uncovered was his uncovering as well. He was just so drunk to the state that he was unaware of what was happening. think is what we're saying.
Well, a husband is supposed to be a wife's covering also.
Mm-hmm.
He's incapacitated, so
Yeah.
he's no longer covering.
That's true too.
So if a husband is drunk, he is no longer the covering for his wife because he's incapacitated, and a husband is supposed to be the wife's covering.
So how come nobody talks about Noah's wife? Was she willingly participating in this? Or was she drunk as well, or asleep, or what?
Dolly, remind us what it was like.
Oftentimes in the Bible, and even for how far back, the actions of the husband would be the actions of the wife. So if Noah was drunken, it would be fair to say that his wife was also drunken, or that his behavior was the reflection of hers, or hers was the reflection of his, vice versa. But he was the covering of her, and he was the reflection of her. She was the reflection of him.
Two things. I would believe that it was unconsensual, and what was it? Right, man and wife, marriage. Marriage to me means it's holy and sanctimonious and sacred. It's the joining of two souls to make one. So in God made marriage to bring forth a multitude, right? So man and wife, they are of one flesh, especially during sex. To uncover your this is where your point comes in of uncovering his wife uncovered Noah's nakedness.
Mm-hmm.
They are one being. No matter how far they are, they're one being.
Right.
That's my interpretation of marriage.
That would be an interesting word study. If when we get to the verses that talk about rape, does it describe those as uncovering someone's nakedness, or is that a different category where rape is clearly wrong and it's forbidden, but when it happens, is it described as uncovering someone's nakedness? Is it the same word used, or is it like, wait a second, now we have a guilty party, an innocent party, and we don't describe it the same as two consenting adults that violate Torah? So my assessment is that it wasn't rape, that it was consensual, and whether it was inebriated or not doesn't even matter. They knew it was wrong, they did it anyway. How do we know that it was wrong? One, because Noah woke up and he was very upset, and the other two brothers knew what was going on and they were very upset. So it was clearly wrong, and then it's described in Leviticus as uncovering your father's nakedness. Yep.
So the definition of consent has kind of changed over the years, but what might not be brought up in Genesis or in Leviticus is that while it's perfectly possible in our modern line of thinking for two adult men to consent to sexual relations, right? That's considered a sin in the good book. In the same way that now we think of consent as being, I hate to use a liberal terminology, but basically it's a power structure, right? Somebody who has lower authority and does not have the authority to give consent cannot consent. Like, for example, a prison guard and a prisoner could not have consensual relations according to our laws. A child and an adult could not have consensual relations. Somebody who is drunken and somebody who is sober could not have consensual relations. There's a lot of things like that. So the definition of consent in our line of thinking may not be exactly the same as the Torah defines it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Leviticus 18 will go on to say in the later reading,
Right.
you cannot consent according to Torah to two adult men having relations.
Right.
So,
Right.
anyway.
Just last night I was going over Lot and his daughters as they left Sodom and Gomorrah. And he was drunkard and had no clue what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I would go back to what Faith was saying is usually especially if you're new to the world, the new world, the fallen world, and then the after the flood world, you would drink with your husband.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even if it's in a celebration, kiddush and all of, you still have these sips of wine, and she might have been out, just like Lot was, as his daughters. We have to repopulate the world. And I find it so funny because cousin Abraham is just up the road, and yet the whole world is destroyed. So they took their view off of, my goodness, Sodom and Gomorrah is destroyed, and they think the whole world is destroyed. But they knew that Abraham was just on the other side of the valley or the hill or wherever. So when you take your eyes off of Messiah, the world becomes fearful and dark, and we have to, you get your own perspective like Adam and Eve did let's be like God. How can we be like God? And so that temptation comes in, and it's, just think about how human I am, my reactions. The people in the Bible are all human. They're smarter than us by far because they didn't have to have everything written down like we do. But yeah, usually you follow what your husband's doing.
Yeah.
And
it could be, right.
And it could be.
Right. Could be.
So it's just interesting that out of those two, Lot, you get Moab.
Right.
Another corrupt person in the land of Israel. And then you have Noah with Canaan, and it's the fourth grandson of Ham, or of Noah. That was the fourth son of Ham, because he had 3 other sons by this point. So I'm like, wow, it really follows to the 4th generation, and it just keeps this perpetuation of, let's take our eyes off of Messiah. And what I loved at the end of my study last night with the Moabites, and then having Ruth come in, even though there's corruption and there's bloodshed and there's all of this sin that has been done and planned. I mean, these people planned this stuff. And then God's like, no, my plan is far above your plan. My purpose and ways are far above your ways. I'm going to redeem. I'm going to have the kinsman redeemer come through this corrupt bloodline that Hasatan was trying to get even with the fall back in when the angels fell and procreated with the women. So there's this constant bloodline struggle. And then the Lord's like, I have another plan. I have the best plan, and that was our Messiah. That's Emmanuel. God is with us. So now we're cleansed, and his blood has purchased our debt. So I love, even though there's such corruption throughout the whole Bible, I love to see God's grace in the Old Testament all the way through. So thank you.
Lot's daughters each gave birth to children. One was Moab, and the other was Ammon. Yeah, and both exist today. So anyway, I realize this is an out-of-the-box reading of the story of Noah, but it does cause you to think. It's not a salvation issue. I don't care if you agree with me on that or not. We don't have to dwell on it the rest of the day or anything like that. But as you're reading Leviticus 18 and 20 verse 11, when we read that one, it's like, wait a second. Does that apply to the Noah story? Was that his nakedness that was uncovered? And if it wasn't, then why did Ham do something that made Noah so angry that he cursed his grandson? Right. He didn't curse Ham for embarrassing him. He cursed his grandson, and that became a generational curse that was forevermore. All because
the real salvation issue here. The real salvation issue here, the wine that Noah drank, was it alcoholic or non-alcoholic?
It was very alcoholic.
He was eating drunk.
Some very, very strong grape juice over there.
It was probably before the flood, so it was at least fermented for that time that it was on the boat.
Can you imagine how big the grapes were still? Right. Yeah. They still had the atmospheric pressure. And
Set 'em up like a watermelon.
Yeah, yes.
That was some Thunderbird.
I'm going to take one little. Sorry. On this subject, I want to stay on this subject till we're done with it, and then I want to take a rabbit trail,
Just
and then we'll get back to the reading.
Very fast rabbit trail. When Ham comes out and announces, I mean, to me that says he planned the whole thing. He wasn't naive. He was bragging about what he had done, and that he was taking over that family lineage, and so yeah, there was premeditation there, and a lot more there of wickedness, and the same wickedness we see all over the place.
And as a man, I can just tell you, just with tons of confidence, it was more his idea than it was hers.
Microphone. That was funny.
We all
Everyone
know
already knows.
Ham wasn't kosher anyhow.
Ham's not kosher anyways.
That, what was it again? Right, the announcement. That brings it back to, it was pre-planned. So that takes study of a person. He knew she would have been drunk, or
Knew a lot of things about her at that point.
yeah,
I'm not
I would
going
think
there.
so.
like it's kind of stalker-ish and study like hunting. That's kind of what it is.
But it wasn't that generation.
But
The
only
other
one.
thing- The other thing is why Noah didn't kill him. Because he should have stoned them both, or killed them both. So,
I know the rabbinic view is that Noah would have known the entirety of the Torah as we have it now. Like he would have known how many of the tribe of Zebulun there were, right? But strictly speaking, that law had not been given at that time. So I mean, I would have wanted to kill him surely, but that law was not given by.
yeah. Adam and Eve.
Well, I mean, Noah did raise him, so you know, it's not like he's without fault if that happened. And it's like, well, he's your son. How did you raise him?
Yeah, there you go.
Was it also because Noah was also in the wrong for being that drunk? So he had no like he wasn't coming from a place of like spiritual, like I was in the right and you were in the wrong. He was also in the wrong while it was being performed. Yeah.
So question, to my knowledge, there was also no prohibition against drunkenness.
What? We can't hear you. Can't hear you.
To my knowledge, there was not at that time a prohibition against drunkenness.
Don't think there is today in Judaism.
There is.
Oh, yeah?
There is a prohibition against
So if a
drunkenness, except for
man-
on Purim, of course.
If a man is in mourning because he's lost his wife, from what I understand, one of the greatest things you can do for him is take him out and have a nice drink session with him and listen to him mourn.
But tradition and law are not the same thing. We have a tradition of wearing white. It's not commanded that we do, certainly. I mean, so anyways, that's my thing. It was also not a sin, to my knowledge, at that time to get drunk explicitly. Although, I mean, God's morality is forever and eternal, it was not given to them as a law at that point, to my understanding.
So, 613 principles. 613 principles. There is a lot of talk about not being drunkenness, but drinking and being merry, just not drunk. It's like hating but not acting on your anger. Kind of like that. Yes, don't overdo it. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I think that since Adam and Eve ate the fruit of good and evil, that now we have at least some moral compass, just like how Ham and Noah's wife knew that they shouldn't be doing that. Noah also knew that he shouldn't be drinking as much as he could, or did, and if he hadn't, then the other thing wouldn't have happened. Probably.
Yeah, to add on what I said and then what you said. What was it? I lost it.
You got it.
That's okay.
Been there. many times.
Can I add one more thing? One more thing. When Reuben went and laid on the couch with his father's concubine, it was like you were saying, it was to take over the family. So there's definitely plans. But even Adam and Eve's deception and sin, the enemy just kind of gives that, it's okay, it's okay. It will make it better. It will help. This is going to help God's plan come. So if you just sin a little white lie, and I was I was at the gym. I'm going to go on a little rabbit trail for a second. But I'm like, here we are in white and orange. I'm sitting in the hot tub at our gym, and our pastor comes out because we go to the gym with him. And I'm like, oh my, we are such in a Greek house right now. It was a lot. But this other man came up. My husband was there, and this was just a couple weeks ago. And it was so sad to hear what the church is doing, what they're promoting right now. And it's here in the Springs. They want to help men come back to being men in America. So it's the mega church here in the Springs. And they put them through, what's that thing called that they run through? The gondola. The church is actually building a gondola, sending men through to get hit and bumped and go through like this whole 3 levels of having swords, people punching you, holding you down so you can fight through to become a man again. And I'm like, my pastor's sitting next, I'm like, what? And he's questioning, we're both looking at this other man who's like, this is the greatest thing. This is so awesome. But the whole veil, like the Lord has a veil over Israel to not see who truly Messiah is until he takes that veil off. But the enemy comes in with a veil. Says this is a good thing for men to go and get to their emotions. But the emotion that this church is wanting to bring is anger. Fight. Become, and I won't say what this ministry is or what this service that they're bringing. It's very bad. It's a bad word. I can't even. Yes, it's to get your blank back. That's what they're calling this ministry. And you have to go wrestle this man at the end of it to go get 2 tennis balls that you can walk around proudly all weekend that you became a man again. And I'm like, unbelievable. This is just 2 weeks. So this is a new ministry here. And so I'm sitting there going, oh, this is Ruben's couch. This is, it's going to be okay. A little white lie. We'll move forward with violence and to help men get their backbone. And it's unbelievable. So, but what we see here now is what we're seeing in the Word of God. It's that testosterone. It's that sexual strength and energy. And I'm going to procreate in the world and bring out more men. And I'm like, Lord, I just want to be separate. I just want to be separated from it.
Right.
And to hear that, and then the pastor that was sitting next to me, he was just like shocked. And I'm like, don't you have anything to say? And he's, no. So I'm standing there speaking to this man. I'm like, this is wrong. This is so wrong. But, what do you do?
Right.
What do you do? So I just pray for them.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
Right. Very true.
It is interesting to say the least.
I remembered what I was going to say. To have a law laid out and thoroughly enforced, the law has to be broken first. And the moral system, it has to be morally broken first. You have to drink and get drunk to know, oh, this shouldn't be, don't get drunk. It shouldn't have had to be with the sexual. It shouldn't have had to, but it was, and now we have to know it's wrong. it should be embedded in your DNA.
Yeah, I would push back a little bit on the, well, we have to break it to know it's wrong. I think Adam lived, before they ate of the fruit of the tree, I don't believe there was any time. I don't think time passed. I don't think he wasn't counting years. So I'm just going to put it in our vernacular, even though I don't believe they didn't understand nakedness. I don't think they understood time. I think that's how they existed. I think it was a long time, years and years and years. Adam looked at that tree and had no desire to take it because God told him not to, and so it took a while. And I want to give him as much credit as possible. A lot of people will read Genesis and say, "Oh my goodness!" At their first opportunity, they just ran to that tree and said, "Forget what he said, and let's just take it and let's eat of it." And I don't believe that's the scenario. I think, and also just another little rabbit trail. I think the reason why Eve ate the fruit of that tree before Adam did is because Adam existed for so much longer than she did. He'd already named everything. He'd already named the plants. He knew which plants caused you drowsiness, which ones caused you to harvest all day. And she was constantly having to come up to Adam and say, which one do I eat for this? Which one do I eat for that? Which animal is good for this? Which animal is good for that? And she just felt like she was constantly trying to catch up. He knew so much. She had been here longer. And so for her, the temptation to be able to have something that would give me knowledge, let me catch up to him. And I'm not saying he wasn't there. I'm not saying he didn't participate in it. But I think that was why it was so much more of a pull for her than it was for him. So that's one of my rabbit trails. The other rabbit trail I was going to talk about kind of is a modern culture rabbit trail. Been seeing it a lot on Charlie Kirk videos that I've been watching. How about any of you coming across either in conversation or on YouTube type scenarios, this idea that the Talmud says it's okay to have sexual relations with a child 3 years of age? Does that ever come across anybody's? You've seen it because it's Charlie Kirk stuff. Did you see it anywhere other than that?
I'm sure I've heard it from atheists, skeptics, people
Yep.
who are just trying to attack.
Yep. So people will come up with their phones and say, according to the Talmud, it says you can do this to a child up the age of 3, and that's consensual or whatever. That's So has anybody else? You guys ever heard any of that? That comes from the Talmud.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Miss Carol, had you ever heard that? Okay.
Yes, I've heard.
Okay, so I just wanted to talk about that. It doesn't have anything to do with Leviticus 18, but the understanding is that the Talmud was having a debate over if a child has had this horrific thing happen to them at the age of 3 or roughly that age, how are we to treat that child going forward? Should that child be deemed a virgin and given all the full rights and responsibilities that come with that declaration, that they're not violated, that they're not defiled, that they're not off limits now? Or would it be better that we would say this is a horrible thing that happened to them, but it wasn't their fault? We're now going to deem that child a virgin so that when they come to age for a bat mitzvah, they can have a bat mitzvah. When they come to the age of marriage, they can be certified by the rabbi, by the priest, you are marrying a virgin. And you could say, but what about what happened when it was 3? We don't go there. We say, as of today, she is a virgin. And it's more of if you look at it in that light, it's like, oh, well, they're trying to restore honor back to a child that had their honor taken from them at such a vulnerable time. So just in case that's something that ever does come across your conversations with people, well, the Talmud says there's an anti-Israel spirit that is flourishing in our world today. So don't be surprised if you do hear that kind of talk, and that could be one of the explanations that you can give, that it's not saying it's okay to have sex with 3-year-olds. It never says that. Torah doesn't say that. Talmud doesn't say that. It's to say, what's the best way to help a young girl at the age of 3 have a full and as good a life as she can have, and let's deem that as she's still a virgin, even though she's had to endure that. So we don't have to talk any more about that, but I just wanted to mention it.
I got a little thing.
Yeah, you got to think.
So, like in 2016-ish, where I kind of think the timeline split personally, 2016 or roughly thereabouts. It's so weird because you could say something that was. You could say that I think this particular brick on this synagogue building looks out of place and to be called an anti-Semite by the left, right? At the drop of a hat. And now they're the ones literally calling for the extermination of the Jews. I mean, if you look at the chant from the river to the sea, right? What that means is from that river to the Sea of Jordan, right? There will be no Israelites and the land will belong to the Palestinians, right? Where they go, they don't care. It's so strange that we went from when it becomes politically convenient, we changed to you can't say anything negative about the Jews to we literally want to exterminate the Jews. And I think it's such a strange dichotomy that they'll, like you said, they'll pull random things out of the Talmud, take them out of context, and pervert them to make up lies about the Jewish people. And you see that all the time, and I've seen it with many more examples than just the thing about the 3-year-olds. So, anyways.
Right. And I would imagine in the years to come, we're going to be like, wow, I've missed the days when all we were talking about was the 3-year-olds, because now it's gotten worse. So. All right, verse 17, if we are ready, or are we still talking? We still talking?
I just wanted to.
I know, but I couldn't figure out where you guys were at. You went past my paragraph. I want to go back. No, that was Faith. I was like, where's she at? Where's she at? Where's she at?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for touching up on that because someone I love is kind of in that mindset. So thank you for talking on that.
Alan, do you want to read? Do you have a mic? 17. 17 is a really good number.
2017?
Isn't it left?
Oh, okay.
No, 17.
18?
Chapter 18. Verse 17. 17 is a good number. We'll start with it.
Okay, you shall not uncover the nakedness of a woman and her daughter, nor shall you take her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter to uncover her nakedness. They are near of kin to her. It is wickedness. Nor shall you take a woman as a rival to her sister to uncover her nakedness while the other is alive. Also you shall not approach a woman to uncover her nakedness as long as she is in her customary impurity. Moreover, you shall not lie carnally with your neighbor's wife to defile yourself with her, and you shall not let any of your descendants pass through fire to Molech, nor shall you profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. You shall not lie with a male as with a woman. It is an abomination. Nor shall you mate with any animal to defile yourself with it. Nor shall any woman stand before an animal to mate with it. It is perversion.
Let's stop there.
That's a good place.
Questions, comments?
Good comment. Good comment.
Got one
Women,
comment.
yeah.
Amen.
You know what's funny? I hate to add on again, but I see a lot of Christians, and especially atheists, will bash on Leviticus 18, and they
mean
harp on.
Christians who are especially atheists?
Yes. Don't have relations with a man, right? And then they ignore all the rest of those things. Why do you think the good Lord put that one with all the rest? There's probably a reason for it.
Oh, what?
Are you saying why did he put it with everything else, like with bestiality, with
No,
what?
rhetorically. I'm saying there's probably a reason for it, you know? Like, you don't need to be a genius to figure out why these things are related.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah. I would say why would he have to say it? I think is the more important question. Why does it need to be said? Like, what's going on so perversely in time that this has to be said and listed out so specifically so that we can take it? Because clearly this is something that we did not overcome as humanity. We clearly need it listed out for us very specifically in this manner.
And what's the answer to your question? Why does it have to be said so?
Oh, because
plainly?
clearly we can't overcome this as humans without him. We clearly have not overcome it. We need it listed out for us blatantly in front of us to know.
Correct. Yep. I do like to come back on what what Lev talked about earlier. It literally says we should not have a Jacob and I get Rachel and Leah. Right, Rachel and Leah. This is a clear, hey, that was not a good thing. Comes back to that same question of, did they know that? Was this law in effect under the time of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Or is this something that, since we now have learned what happened with Rachel and Leah, now Moses, generations later, Moses is ready to come out and say, hey, let's learn from our mistakes. And was it okay back then and now it's not? Or was it wrong then and they did it anyway? It's an interesting conversation.
I think there's kind of both. Like where did Connor go? What Connor was saying earlier about how you kind of have to, something bad has to happen before you can say something's wrong with it, in a sense. I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't need to kill somebody to know it's wrong to kill somebody, of course. But, he's got a point. Like, I think morality is tribal in a sense, right? So for the Muslims, right, in their worldview, it is acceptable to lie, it is acceptable to steal, and it is acceptable to murder as long as it's not within your tribe. Against a fellow Muslim, utterly immoral. It's wrong in the way that we view it as wrong against everybody, right? But to an outsider, free game, right? As far as tribalism goes, I think the entire world kind of has that mindset, but it's more narrow, right? Like, you might look inside of your family and say, I shouldn't curse at my brother and sister, like their biological brother and sister, but you would have no problem flipping off somebody in traffic, for example. So to an extent, it's true that we do have an internal moral compass. When they learned of the knowledge of good and evil, Adam and Eve knew they were naked. They knew it was wrong to uncover their nakedness openly like that, despite that they had definitely not been told that. But we also did have to be told these things clearly. Like, it literally had to be carved into stone. That was all.
On that note, do you not think that Rachel and Leah's dad knew what he was doing, taking advantage of Jacob?
Unless it says that they knew, I don't know.
Well, he knew what Jacob wanted.
Again, I don't know. They probably had an internal moral compass.
And then he tricked him into his first wife and then ended up with 2 wives, and then it turned out to be a bad situation.
They probably had an internal moral compass and knew deep down what was wrong. But like I said, there's a reason why it had to be spelled out in stone.
Why is this a they thing? Why isn't this a Jacob thing?
It's a
he's
humanity
he's the one that chose to take on 2 wives.
It's a humanity thing.
Just like a quickly read one of my favorite verses in the Bible, Romans 2:12 is where it starts. All who sin apart from the law will also perish apart from the law, and all who sin under the law will be judged by the law. For it is not those who hear the law who are righteous in God's sight, but it is those who obey the law. So whether they had heard the law or not, it is those who obey the law who will be declared righteous. Indeed, when Gentiles who do not have the law, or anyone before the law who didn't have the law, that would apply to, do by nature things required by the law, they are a law for themselves, even though they do not have the law, since they show that the requirements of the law are written on their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and their thoughts now accusing or even defending them. And this will take place on the day when God will judge men's secrets through Yeshua the Messiah, as my gospel declares. So I like that, because whenever someone says, oh, well, you Christians say that everybody's going to go to hell who, didn't even know about Jesus or didn't know about, the Bible. All these people, off in far-off lands who never had a Bible, what about them? And it's like, it's all right there in Romans 2. So, and you can apply that.
It even talks about Yom Kippur, on the day.
Yep, on the day.
On the day you face the judge. And that's what we're here practicing today, practicing that day.
Amen. So I have a question. I keep hearing that Adam didn't know that, and Adam didn't know that. This is only an Anna question, not, it's just one of those floaties. If he spent all of those days walking in the cool of the afternoon with God, how much did he not know? He spent a lot of time talking to the greatest authority there was. I'd love to walk through one of those conversations.
Well, like Troy said, he probably knew quite a great deal, but God himself says that nobody told Adam and Eve they were naked. So there were certain things in the realm of morality. They may have known the names of every animal. They may have known every single plant. They may have known the mechanics of the universe for all we know, but they did not know the difference between right and wrong because there was no wrong that had entered the world at that time. It was, like you had said, undefiled. It was pure still.
Right.
So if you were clothed in such a manner in a heavenly body, which you will have when you get out of here, we're going to have to put clothes on?
Maybe.
Were
If I'm not mistaken, the angels are usually described as like the ones that appear to humans in human
Shining
form.
ones.
They're normally described as wearing clothing, if I'm not mistaken.
They're described as the shining ones.
Shining
Wh-
ones.
Yeah.
I think Adam and Eve were clothed with light.
I do
They
too.
they couldn't see the
When the light went away was when they sinned.
right, when they
And
sinned.
all
The
of
light.
a sudden you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that nice, warm, cuddly light I had around me that I needed as much as the bear needed his bear rug. Now it's gone.
I see hairy toes. Ooh. Bring back the light.
Yeah, there's your
I would say, if anything, that just draws more attention to the fact that we all fall short of the glory of God, because even Adam, who walked in the garden, who was clothed in light, who was walking with God physically in the garden, still fell short in the end. He still sinned. He still brought that into the world. So if anything, Adam's still just a shining example of how we will fall short regardless of how perfect we are made in God's image. That was my
and the mercy of our God, because if that sin deserved death, but God didn't just wipe them off the face of the earth and say, okay, start over. You walked out of that one. He provided a way to bring them to him in salvation.
Yeah.
Troy's personal answer is to Anna's question, how much did Adam not know? Very little. I think he was the smartest being to ever walk on ground, and every generation since Adam has forgotten something that Adam taught them, and we are dumber today than they were then. So
I would say just recently I used AI to answer a weird question I had in my head. I said, and by asking AI, figuring that the first perfect human and let's say if you had two perfect humans 6,000 years ago, and they had no faults, until now, there would be over 198 mutations between there to now. We're becoming less human the further we get away from Adam and Eve.
genetically then.
Genetically.
Yeah, genetically. Yeah.
Me and my friends, our professor that day had called in sick, and we don't really do substitutes in those kind of classes. So we kind of just sat in the cafeteria, and I was coming in late, and there was a question like, how did Adam and Eve know not to eat the fruit of good and evil if good and bad didn't exist? Like, how did they know that they would surely die if
That's an easy one. Come in, coach.
how did they know that they were going to die if death didn't exist? And me and my friend Priscilla, we just looked at each other and we were like, because he told them not to. and I was and the girl who was asking the question is agnostic, and she'd been Christian like her whole life, and she was like, but it doesn't make any sense. And I was like, because my dad is my dad, and I was like, well, I think that he's the smartest person to ever live, so I think that even if he didn't know what the fruit of good knowledge or whatever is, that he would be smart enough to know not to go against what God said.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually it came to that point, but
I think it was like made into you, because look at children now. I mean, you can tell a child, do not push that red button. And that's the first thing they want to do, is push that button.
Yep. Well, they kind of had the innocence of a child with the understanding of an adult, right? As far as, again, disregarding the knowledge of good and evil, they didn't have that yet. But hot stove knowledge, right? You can tell a child, don't touch that red button all you want, right? Now that child, if they are a good child, and no child is a good child, will listen and won't touch the stove. But when they do touch that stove and they get burned, they found out, right? If your father tells you, don't touch the stove or you'll get burned, you may not understand it, but you can still choose to obey or disobey. Hot stove learning.
And Brandon, the gentleman who was talking about AI, his name is Mike. You're going to get along with him really well. If you ask me who do I know that's into AI, I would say Brandon, and now I'm going to say I know two guys.
And Brian Ortiz really likes ChatGPT.
It's 4:30, right? We got plenty of time. 4:30. You guys are helping me greatly with that thing that I'm not talking about. It's going quite easily today. Any more thoughts on? So we talked a little bit about the two sisters and not marrying two sisters, not having two wives that are sisters. It hasn't said anything about only having one wife yet. Verse 21, I don't want that to go undiscussed. You are not to let any of your children be sacrificed to Moloch, thereby profaning the name of your God. I am Adonai. I think our country has a 50-year heaviness of abortion being legalized nationally, and
Is that essentially what it's talking about?
that's the modern day equivalent to this. What they're
talking about sacrificing your child to a god that was called Moloch at the time. It was a real thing.
It was a real thing. It was a statue, and it was made of bronze, and they would build a fire underneath it, and I believe the arms were out like this, and you could say people would say you could see the glow start at the torso of Moloch, and then the glow of the red hot iron as it would fade towards the hands, but the hands are still 1,000 degrees probably, and people would throw their children into the hands of Moloch for a good crop. For a barren woman would, well, I guess that's a bad example.
Or a better house, or a better
bigger
car,
house,
or
more
all these things.
crops.
We still have the same desires.
All those things.
I have
Yeah.
literally seen people in real life say, I can't afford a house, so I'm going to have an abortion.
Yeah.
It's no different than saying, I'm going to sacrifice my firstborn child so I can afford a house. There's no difference.
I need
Well,
more
it might
cows.
sound conspiracy-like, but we think it's really true that the people that organize abortions, they know very much about Moloch, and it's happening the way they want it to happen. We're told it's just abortion, but it's not. They know. There's people that have been perpetuating that to go, and it's very much satanic things that our babies are dying to Moloch.
I know it's kind of like cliche to get into the subject of abortion while at the house of worship, but it's true. And I've seen, especially in places like California, New York, places that are very liberal, as it were, call parenting centers, which are usually run by Christian organizations, hey, don't have an abortion, we can help you pay for your child, diapers, baby food, all that kind of stuff, help them if it's a financial thing to where they truly cannot afford it. I've seen people call that hateful and evil and, deceitful and all these things. And those very same people will say that Planned Parenthood or various abortion clinics are just trying to help the mother. So, gaslighting, yes.
Because what happens to the body parts of the babies? We leave the room and then we don't know what happens to them. Where do they go?
100%. It was, who was it that did an expose that literally showed people who run abortion clinics making an agreement to sell fetal body parts. I had said that how many exposés have been done showing the people who run abortion clinics agreeing off the books to sell human body parts from fetuses.
There's this like skincare routine, like just going around the internet that's like injecting salmon, like sperm, into like, or like just having things that sperm in it like helps heal your acne, scars, whatever. And it's like, if that's what's going into our our skincare now, like, how do we not know that what else is going into our product?
You know, I got a little bit of acne, but I can wash my face in the mornings like everybody else. Soap and water's good. Soap and water's good. I like that.
And do you know why the occult go out into the woods and go to a specific place and do their incantations and do their spells and do their rituals and their customs? Do you know why they do that? They probably used to have to do it for that reason. I don't think
Because
they
no
have
one
to do
can
that
see what they're
anymore.
really doing.
It's their high place. It's a place where they have sacrificed animals. It's their place where they may have sacrificed human beings. It's a place where they have dedicated this place to be about Satan's work. And so one of the things that took place a couple years ago when the Supreme Court canceled abortion nationwide as a rule, the Church of Satan filed an injunctive relief saying, you can't do that. Because we go into abortion clinics and we hold our seances because there's more death there, and that is our holy ground. You have just withheld our access to the most, what we would say, the most evil place on earth is their holiest place on earth. And they literally put in a injunctive relief lawsuit to the Supreme Court to allow the Church of Satan to continue having access to abortion clinics, even in states where that abortion had been declared unconstitutional.
They did allow that?
The Supreme Court did not grant them injunctive relief, but the fact that they requested it it exposed them. What? Nobody knew before that churches of Satan went into abortion clinics to conduct their seances and to conduct their evil rituals because they declared that place their holy ground.
A few years ago, we had went to Breckenridge on Yom Kippur because we were not in the synagogue, so we took our Yom Kippurs and did our Yom Kippurs and praying over high places. And we went to Breckenridge, and we went with Rena, who was here yesterday, Kelly's friend, and we were like, okay, we have to go to Breckenridge. And we were praying over a school at first, correct? Yeah, we were praying over a school. And I said to him, I told my wife, Kelly, and I told, it was on Halloween, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Please tell me those 2 days didn't coincide.
No. So we went up to Breckenridge to pray over the school, but I told them, I said, God had just spoke to me. I said, we're in the wrong spot. I said, we have to go back a mile and go pray in the cemetery on Halloween. And we're like, oh, okay. So it was, as we're driving in, I mean, we just got cars and we drove into the cemetery. And it was kind of like weird shaped. It had these two like circles in there that you could drive around. And
you weren't alone.
We beat them.
Nice. Yep. Ooh.
There was 13 witches dressed up literally as witches, walking with all their staffs and poles and books, and that's the first. So, and this was the largest child cemetery in Colorado. There's literally there was a place there where you can just go, if your child dies, you can go dig up a spot and bury your child. No, we got there, and there was like literally just sand poured and toys all put around this little headstone that someone had made.
It goes back 200 years.
Yeah, and we sat there, and before those witches got in there and started praying or whatever, and people were like gathering around them, like. But we got in there, blew the shofar before they had a chance. So God's voice, God's presence was brought there before those witches had a chance.
I'll just add to it real quick. Oh, my brain just went bloop. When the shofars were blowing, the Lord tells us, do not practice, do not do divination or necromancy.
It exists. It exists.
It exists.
But
and
don't do it.
Don't do it. So we're standing there, and like the church has been deceived. Well, the whole world has been deceived that there is no power there. Oh, this is just, it's just a witch in a hat. And these people are practicing this. Just as we're, coming into, we're in the shadow of Yom Kippur. We're practicing. We're stepping into obedience. They are obedient also. And there are powers there. And so when we were blowing the shofars, and we were reading the cemeteries. We walked through the whole cemetery. And I think there might have been a 19-year-old was the oldest at that point. But we go back to like 1813, I think, was the first, the oldest date that we could actually read, because everything's been so blown by the snow and the wind, and just numbers are disappearing there. And we look over, and all of the witches are standing in a crescent moon shape. And we looked, and behind them, we heard, and there was something coming up out of the ground there. And we kept blowing that shofar. And the witches were looking at us, so confused, like, why is our deity not showing up? And as we were, the Lord said, you may leave now. And we all left. And as we're driving by, the head witch and I, eye contact. She had no idea what had just happened. And I'm like, the power of Adonai. And I pray, we think about them often. Lord, bring them out, because they are, if they're not yours, there's the goat and the sheep being separated. But Lord, they were brought up in that. These are generational witches. These aren't just your normal kitchen witches, which is a real thing. These aren't your bathroom witches. These are generational kitchen.
I don't know what
that
is.
So there's like, I'm a pink witch, I'm an orange witch, I'm a white witch. And they have all of these. I do love spells, or I do, simple little.
The TikTok witch.
Yes. Right. So a kitchen witch is going to use something that's in her kitchen, or he's in his whatever's in his kitchen, tea leaves and different things and it's waste. They actually practice in garbage. They're in unclean items. They bring those. We're supposed to be made clean, right? We're made new creation. We're supposed to be separate from the unclean, the profane. And it's always crazy. You can, they just find garbage and they make an altar out of. And so it was very interesting. It was awesome to see the hand of God move and silence them. They couldn't say anything. Even their deity, whatever was rising up out of the ground that we could hear screaming, we were like, okay, there is no fear. And the Lord brought us there, and nothing happened. And what was amazing, because we follow, ley lines are very interesting. So when
Ley
you come,
lines?
ley lines.
Yeah.
So from Washington, D.C., the Washington Monument comes straight across to Breckenridge. It's on the same line. And we were praying, because we had learned, the Lord was telling us that Yom Kippur, I need you to stand against Molech and the nation. And we were praying, and then it was 4 months later that Roe versus Wade was overturned. So we're standing in a cemetery where children, babies, a couple days old, a couple of them were just a couple days old. And it was just this feeding, this frenzy. And then Roe versus Wade was overturned 4 months later. And we were like, Lord, your ways are far above our ways. And he had us in a cemetery on Halloween. And we're like, oh, this is nuts. But it's forever with us. So thank you for letting us share.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I want to share real quick Ephesians 6, because our fight is not against flesh and blood. And the church has been, and the church, Israel, the temple, we have forgotten how to fight dragons. We have forgotten how to fight high places, tear them down as Joshua did. And when we come into these powers of governing darkness and against spiritual forces of evil in heavenly realms, I can't look at a person and be like, I hate you. I'm disgusted with their behavior. I want to know what is telling them to do this, because that's who we're supposed to come after. Stand, hold dominion over the earth, and that's what we've done over this cemetery and Center of America. God's like, I hear you. I keep hearing, for 400 years they were crying out, Lord, help us, save us, get us out of here. And I'm like, is America doing this? Because we've been in slavery for a very long time of coming under different churches, different doctrines and theologies. And I'm like, Lord, where are we? And he's like, you're lost. Seek me and you will find me. So that was what our Yom Kippur turned into a couple years ago, was praying for those that are lost, have different teachings, and stand against their principalities and high places so they can be hopefully set free.
We were doing Erev Shabbat many, many, many years ago. This might be before Ellen and Anna even. And that was a long time ago. We went down to Monument Valley Park on a Friday night, and we were turning into an Erev Shabbat in the park. And we had a lot of young people, and we were playing volleyball. And Bob and Donna were there. Can't remember. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Can you remember any of the other people that were there? Marianne and Garrett were there. And we were down there doing Erev Shabbat, and all of a sudden the drum circle started to show up. And it was the full moon, and they were celebrating. It had to be a Friday night. It was a full moon. And our kids just kept on playing volleyball on our side of the park, and we just began praying against whatever it is they were doing on there. And it became very, very hostile. Not us towards them, but they were very aware that we were in their area and we did not belong in their area, and we were interfering with what they wanted to do. And our kids were playing, Bob and I just kind of formed a wall of prayer, and we were just openly praying against what they were doing as a hedge of protection, so our kids could continue playing volleyball, and they were oblivious. They didn't know what was going on. And then I just ran out of things to pray, and I just remember getting stuck on greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. And I just kept repeating that over and over, and like the more I said it, the more I believed it, the stronger I was saying it, the more I was saying it, the more I believed it, and it was just self-fulfilling prophecy. And then when it was all said and done and we were ready to leave and we were walking out, they were so mad at us. I can't even remember how they verbalized it, how they vocalized it. But the kids even were leaving going, what was their problem? Why were they so upset with us? And it's like there was probably 100 yards between us. We never crossed into each other's territory. But somehow even the kids who were just playing volleyball throughout that evening sensed that as we were leaving the park, why was that group so upset with us? And it was like, well, for the same reason the group that got to the cemetery after you was upset with you guys. So I definitely can relate to that story. Anything else on Moloch? Anything else to our children being sacrificed?
I have a small little thing. So small little thing. At Sukkot, maybe 3 years ago, I was at Sukkot. I wasn't there for when it happened, thank God. It was extremely stormy, and it was nasty, and it was a really crummy night at Sukkot, and everybody was wondering, well, why is the good Lord ruining this perfectly good Sukkot day? And what I learned later on was about a mile outside of where we had our Sukkot. There, and this is not even a joke. There was actually a witch coven. I think probably TikTok witches. I don't know. Could have been generational witches, kitchen witches. I don't know. There was a witch coven that was doing a seance there, and they were struck with lightning, which is kind of crazy, I think. And so it turned something that we had thought was, a curse upon our blessed day to something that was actually a blessing. So, anyways.
But you didn't find out till later.
This was after the day had already happened, and I was talking to somebody. So.
Yep. His ways are beyond our ways. His thoughts are beyond our thoughts. So, anything else on? I guess we don't have to argue about the animal part. All right. I don't hear any of you arguing with any of this, so that's a good thing. Verse 24. Miss Carol, do you have a microphone near you? I want to hear your sweet voice, lady. You were on the dream team.
Do not make yourselves unclean by any of these things, because all the nations which I am expelling ahead of you are defiled with them. The land has become unclean, and this is why I am punishing it. The land itself will vomit out its inhabitants. I don't have my glasses, so I'm struggling a little bit. But you are to keep my laws and rulings and not engage in any of these disgusting practices, neither the citizens nor the foreigner living with you, for the people of the land have committed all these abominations, and the land is now defiled. If you make the land unclean, it will vomit you out too, just as it is vomiting out the nation that was there before you. For those who engage in any of these disgusting practices, whoever they may be, will be cut off from their people. So keep my charge not to follow any of these abominable customs that others before you have followed, and thus defile yourselves by doing them. I am Adonai your God. Learn from their example.
I'm so grateful that America, the land of America, has not vomited us out of it, because we're in the Super Bowl of all the things we just said we're not supposed to do. And the amount of pornography that's produced in this country exceeds all the other countries added up. I wouldn't be surprised if the amount of abortions we have here exceeds any other country, and just in all the things that we've talked about. But hopefully, the reason is because there's been a remnant, that there has been a faithful few. I love how the liturgy that we do every week, but especially the liturgy that comes out during the holy days, talks about remember us for our forefathers' sake. Remember us. If we're not measuring up, please remember how much you loved Abraham. If we're not measuring up, please remember how much that love passed to Isaac. If we're still not measuring up, remember Jacob also. And Lord, I'll list them off. I know we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, but have mercy that you had for them. And I think our country can do the same thing, but I phrase it a little bit different. I don't think because of George Washington, I don't think because of Abraham Lincoln, I don't think because of Benjamin Franklin, am I asking God to be more merciful. But because of the people that came over on the Mayflower, because of the people who founded Jamestown and all the colonies up and down the coast, the reason they came was for all those right reasons. So they could, for the proper reason, for righteous reasons. And so I believe because of that and the remnant that has descended from that, getting outside of government, getting outside of the Masons, getting outside of all the things that are taking us down the wrong path. There's people like us in rooms like this all over this country that are still praying for this country to repent and return to our godly foundations of people wanting to come over here for freedom of religion and to exercise that religion, not get complacent with that freedom, but to actually have a choice to be here today or to, I don't know, go skateboarding. Let's go to the zoo. Let's go, let's go to work. Let's make some money. It's like no. Let's call for that repentance.
When you're talking about that, I seen a YouTube video just yesterday where this guy was interviewing these. You can tell they were all woke people, and they're saying how America is a horrible country and stuff like that. And he goes, well, he says if you had an all-expense-paid trip out of America and they gave you $1,000 to spend on whatever you wanted to, would you still? And you never had to come back, would you leave? And their answer was no.
I gotta say, people leave Cuba in these makeshift, tire rafts with barrels and tires and whatever, right? They flee over hundreds of miles of shark-infested waters to illegally come to the land of the free, the home of the brave, the place where, you can practice your religion freely and say what's on your mind without fear of persecution, right? I've never seen somebody get onto a raft and try to escape through shark-infested waters, capitalism and free speech and freedom of religion. I've never seen that. I've heard a lot of people saying, oh, I'm going to leave for Canada, but I don't see them doing it. I don't see them doing it.
I had my Charlie Kirk shirt on that I got because I got it in the mail the other day. It says freedom across the front, and on the back it just says, just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right. I went to the bank yesterday. I was depositing my check, and then this lady behind the counter, she's reading my shirt. She goes, I love that shirt. And she had an accent. She was from Poland. She goes, because not all people are free. He goes, and until you experience freedom, you don't know joy. She goes, I like your shirt. And I was like, oh, thank you.
If I could just kind of bring it back to what Troy was saying, though, about how, we can still see a lot of these things in our world today. So even though we do have, the greatest country, admittedly, if we didn't think that, we'd kind of be foolish. We still live in a Sodom and Gomorrah, though, and we can't blind ourselves to that. And in that, I think we have to kind of have that heart of Abraham. When the angel of the Lord comes to him, warning him of what's going to happen a lot in Abraham. But Lord, if it just is for the soul of one person, of 50, of 10, of whoever, we have to have that same desire for our nation, our people, that if it's just for the soul of one person, if we can just do it but for one person to save one more, then we're doing the right thing, because our goal should always have that heart to bring them back away from that sin and have that heart of but Lord, if just for one. So even though we are a great nation and we obviously surpass other nations on a lot of things, we are still a Sodom and Gomorrah, falling apart constantly, like we've just talked about with Planned Parenthoods and stuff. So we should be praying for those people with the heart of Abraham, for the souls of Sodom and Gomorrah.
To tack on to what you said there, you ever seen the Wall of China? I know that sounds super random, but the Wall of China, the big, beautiful, Zhejiang, I think that's what it's called, section that you see that's, beautiful brick and mile high and gorgeous, right? The section you go to. What you don't see in the pictures is the hundreds of miles of section where it's, collapsed rock and it's piles of dirt and sand and it's all this, garbage basically, right? You don't see that. America is kind of the same. We've got sections like this where it's beautiful rock and stone that's, dedicated to the Most High. And then you've got places like Los Angeles and, certain parts of New York City. So
Vegas.
it's in my mind, I kind of compare it to that. You see the nice part from our perspective until you start looking outside of the picture that was taken.
Or maybe it's more like a Nineveh,
I want to take a page out of Mallory's book because I'm trying to learn, be more like Mallory. I'd like us to stop. I'd like to pray for what Kelly talked about a few minutes ago. The generational witchcraft curse that these people were born into and the oppression, and it seems impossible. It seems, but it doesn't seem like there's a way out. And they're in a room with no doors and no windows. And I want to pray for that. And I also want to make people aware in a way that I want you to be very sensitive to what I'm saying. That we have somebody in our congregation who is trying to get out of that, even as we speak. And I don't want to name names. I don't want to let anybody even know what that is, but that should be a prayer for. I'm saying this because I know that in this setting, we're going to pray for the witches that Kelly was talking about. But we're going to talk. We'll talk about. I don't know. I love a pink witch. Right? I don't know what the. I would like to describe the one that we have in our congregation who is like. This is different. I've been to lots of churches, but there's something different here, and there's something here that I want to strive for, and I'm thinking about getting rid of these books that have spells in them. I don't know if I should sell them. I don't know if I should burn them. We should definitely burn those. Yeah. But I mean, just in the most gentlest of ways that I could even, if she's even willing to ask me for advice, I'd be willing to give it type of a thing. But just a prayer for those far off and for those not so far off, that the Lord would show doors and windows of escape. Mike, did you want to say something?
Yeah. On that, getting the way out, I go into a lot of people's houses. I see a lot of. Must have been 15 years ago, I went into this house of what you would call a kitchen witch. She always told me she was a Wiccan. She goes, "Oh, I only use good spells. There's no good spells, But she had a little boy who was a little bigger than their little daughter. We kept him in a crib. And when I came to spray their house, I would go in there. But they had all these spells that would say on the walls. But she was a good person. And she kept her son in the crib on this little circle rug. And she would just drag him around through the house, But the rug was a pentagram. And so the mother was out in the living room. She was in the kitchen. I walked into the one bedroom. I had to go into the son's bedroom. He was watching a TV show, but he was in his crib on his pentagram. And I said a quick prayer over that child while I was in there, while the mother was outside. And then she would pull the kid out because I just sprayed the room, put him in the living room. And where he was sitting over there, I was in the kitchen, and she's in between him and myself. And after I had done that, she had brought him out. And that kid could not do anything but try to look at me after I said that. And he would try to crawl out his crib. And it was like the mother had her back, so she didn't know where the kid was. But if the kid was out this side of the crib, she would step this way. So it was like she knew in her spirit. And then the kid would lean over this way. And then and I was just kept looking at it. And I know the kid's name is Ethan. And God told me, He says, "You saved that kid's life." He says, "You will see that kid again in heaven." every once in a while, I still say a prayer for Ethan. I mean, it was 15 years ago, but I took that as a promise from God that just from that 2 minutes I spent with him in that bedroom, that it saved him.
Yeah. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father and our King, come before you today, Lord, on this most special day, this day of remembrance, this day of repentance, this day of understanding how fallen our world has become, how much it must break your heart, Lord, to see your children turn their backs on you and fill our minds with things that distract us from your voice so that we can't hear your voice anymore. Lord, we just want to pray for those who have been caught up in the occult, in the hidden things, in the things that you told us exist, but that we're not to have anything to do with. And Lord, for those generational curses that have been passed down, and for those people, Lord, that feel like they're in a room with no windows and no doors of escape, Lord, we just pray right now for them that you would begin to show them windows and doors that they didn't see on their own. Lord, we just pray that you would begin to bring people into their lives. Lord, if at all possible, even people in this room that you would equip to be able to bring truth and life and light and hope and joy into their lives when they don't see any of that coming from the path that they're currently on, Lord. Lord, I pray that you would make Bay a place that is ready to receive those who have come out of great darkness and are just trying to explore the light and try to explore you and your ways and your word. Lord, I pray that you would have us be a house of worship that is welcoming to them. Lord, that we would also be wise and not allow anything in that has no place here. And Lord, we know the difference between that which is an attack by the enemy and that which is just the baggage that people are bringing in with them that they're trying to get rid of, Lord. Just pray that you would give us that wisdom to understand and know how to deal with it. Lord, I ask that you would break that curse. Give them a way out. Give them hope. Give them an escape.
Regain this beautiful state of ours that you've given us. And so, Lord, if there's nothing else in prayer, please put it on the hearts of this congregation to just come against Satanism, witchcraft, that underlying root of evil in every way that we can, Father.
These people that are out there, and they may not be here, but we can pray for them from here, Lord. And I pray you would open their eyes to the truth, and that the lies that they're being told, and especially these children that have been raised in that, Lord, I pray that you would just bring people into their lives so that they can be Yeshua, a light to them, so they can see. And I pray that our eyes would be open to these folks, that we can try to be a light to them. But I just pray the lies that Satan has for them, that those lies in the name of Yeshua would disappear, Lord, and that your truth, your light, your hope, everything about you would be seen to know that there is a way out for them.
Yeshua, I ask that you bring another Jericho to these walls that will soon crumble. Let there be a freedom for those who are trapped. Let there be salvation for those who are lost. And though I struggle to hear you, I know you hear me. I know you hear us. Your ways are greater. Your throne is above every other throne. There is no one like you. You do things that are impossible. You are the God of impossibilities. You are the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Let there be a great rejoicing when these walls fall.
Yes,
Let there be times of tears when these walls fall. But joyous tears. Tears of freedom and hope and faith. Of conversion. Let it not go silently into the night. Let a light shine through us,
yes,
your people.
yes.
Bring not only us, but them, the weary, the lost, the sick, even the fallen. Bring them forth to you. There is no sickness. There is no perversion. There's no tumors. There's no... It is not welcome in your throne room. There is a war that you are winning. Blessed be your holy and righteous, unrivaled name. Our great Father, King, God, and Savior. You stepped down from holiness to die for us, sending your one and only begotten Son, that we would have freedom. We know this. Allow us to spread this knowledge. Allow others to know this, who are seeking you, who are falling. We know you will catch them. Let them know that you will catch them, Lord. In your great, righteous, holy, unrivaled, and ever begotten name.
I'd like to pray for all of those children who get molested and assaulted in their families. People who don't seem to have a choice. They may be given a choice. And those people that, those kids that get sold off like livestock for organs or sex trade.
You're so right, Donnie. I met Mallory's friend last Saturday night over at Etz Chaim, and her name is Stacy, Sandy, and she will be a guest speaker at Bay in coming months. We don't have a date nailed down, but she told me that she was trafficked from the age of 6 to 26, and so she'll be coming to talk about things that you just now mentioned, Donnie. So I think that's really amazing that the Lord would put that on your heart, right when it's been on Mallory and my heart just recently, and maybe even on other people's hearts. So, Mallory, would you lead off in prayer for the children?
The verse that's been on my mind is that
Yeshua came to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. And the sabbatical year started on Yom Kippur, right? So, Lord, I pray for a year of your favor, that Yeshua will free the captives, those people who are taken away against their will, Lord, into darkness, and free the prisoners. Proclaim freedom to the prisoners, people who willingly went in without realizing maybe exactly how dark the darkness was. I pray that this will be a year of your favor on children, Lord, in our nation especially. The children coming in and out of our nation, over the borders, Lord. I pray for freedom for the people who maybe were trafficked as children, Lord, and are now doing the same evil things to others, God. But I pray that this year your righteousness will come and that we will see freedom and the captives and the hostages returned. In Yeshua's name.
Does anybody else know anybody who has been trafficked or has been in debt? You know somebody?
I don't personally know anybody, but there's definitely cases at work that's like terrifying and it's pretty impossible to help them in any way when they've had a baby. So, it's really sad to see the evilness sometimes and how it affects us as workers there, and my coworkers having to go home after taking care of 15, 16-year-old girls that just won't say anything, and family members that won't leave their side, and so it's really heavy and it's really, really, really dark, and I've definitely had to pray with coworkers and things like that of just there's nothing you can do but pray. They are so evil, and it's so hard to actually find out the truth in those situations. So just don't know anybody personally, but have definitely prayed against it and for those people and for the children who are probably going to be sold and those sorts of things. So
I told Sandy about you and some of those difficult situations you've been in. Am I understanding the rules correctly that if a child offers you something to eat on Yom Kippur, you're supposed to eat it? I was. Oh, it's not even her food. Oh, you can't take.
I think the rule is you can't take food from the child unless it's been stolen already. So.
Well, it's required to be stolen first. That's very important.
Well, clearly I got some bad information. I don't know where it came from, but. How about Jonah, anybody? Anybody ever heard of Jonah?
Something about those Ninevites stealing other people's boxes. Now that it's finally 6:30, we're gonna
He's before Micah, and he's after Obadiah. So if that kind of helps you narrow it down.
It's like
it's 2 pages, so if you flick fast, you could easily miss it.
It's somewhere in the prophets.
Somewhere in the prophets.
Page 819, guys. Just look up your Bible.
Oh, 819. Well, of course.
Okay, I'm sorry, 819
Oh.
somewhere in Psalms. 819 in mine is the Psalms. Yeah. Try 744, see if that helps that. What do we got? 744, still the Psalms.
Try 1253.
1253.
Right after
let's roll the
Obadiah,
dice.
which is also only one page.
It's also 1 page.
Habakkuk. Oh, it might actually be 1253. That's Nahum.
If you hit,
Wait.
hit Micah, he's gone too far.
You get into them little bitty books.
Nahum. Is it before Micah? It's 1236, and I just realized I closed it.
At least you said them was a
It's
number of the
12:36.
page before you hit one.
It's like 5 minutes of reading.
Matthew and Cassandra, do you want to come in and join the circle so we can pick on you? Nope. We got two spots for you. Okay.
I do not need this much attention, so someone over here take
Well, but you definitely need some.
Should just do popcorn.
Popcorn Jonah sounds good.
Cool. Jonah, what does the word Jonah mean? So I'm just going to take a little rabbit trail that when we were in Israel last year. Hi. Yeah, this? Yeah? Is this Joseph's lunch sack? I read the name on the inside. Now I know why we call it stolen food. Yes. Joseph's a nice boy. He will let you have some. But when we got to go to Israel, we were there for Shavuot. We were there before Shavuot. Is it yours?
Well, it is now.
It is now. And so we were there, and our tour was over, and we were there, and it was the 40th day of the counting of the Omer. And so I said I wanted to be on the Mount of Olives, and I wanted to be on the top of the Mount of Olives on the 40th day, and I wanted to find the town of Lazarus, Bethany, and because at the end of Luke chapter 24, at the very end, it says that they were on the road to Bethany, and the Lord stopped and raised his hands and said a blessing over them. And as he was blessing them, he was raised up. It's called the Ascension, and he was raised up from their sight. And so I'm like, well, we knew it was the 40th day that was his ascension, and so I'm like, I want to be on the Mount of Olives on that particular day. And so we were there, and we were reading the story from Luke of his ascension. We were reading the entire Matthew chapter 24, which is called the Olivet, Mount of Olives, Olivet discourse, that he taught that whole sermon right there from that mountain. So we read that. We read verses from Ezekiel, and we just read as many verses as we could. And as we were reading, Talia is sitting next to me going, Dad. I go, wait, I'm not done. I'm still reading. And she keeps on bumping me, Dad, you got to see this. I'm like, wait till I get to a paragraph. And then, so she finally gets my attention. She says, look. And then off to our side over here were 5 doves just flying in a circle, and they just kept on flying in this circle. Christy's got pictures of it. So anyway, I wrote that in my Bible that day, that the 5 white doves on the Mount of Olives in 2024. So I put that there for Jonah, which means that's so really cool, fun story. All right. Who has a mic and wants to read?
I want to read.
The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai.
That would be a no, Lev. That would be a hard no.
Go ahead.
The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai. Go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah ran away from the Lord and headed for Tarshish. He went down to Joppa, where he found a ship bound for that port. After paying the fare, he went aboard and sailed for Tarshish to flee from the Lord. Then the Lord sent a great wind on the sea, and such a violent storm arose that the ship threatened to break up. All the sailors were afraid, and each cried out to his own God. But they threw the cargo into the sea to lighten the ship. But Jonah had gone below deck, where he lay down and fell into a deep sleep.
Let's end at that paragraph after verse 5. Anything step off in that first paragraph to anybody? He ran. God says, go, and he did. The opposite direction. Who does that remind you of? Yeah.
Any soldier ever?
Any soldier ever? Yes.
His father's name is Amitai, which means truth.
Amitai.
Plays into the story later.
Another thing we learned on a previous trip to Israel is we talked about the story of Noah and his 3 sons, and we talked about Ham. We won't talk about Ham anymore. Not kosher. Shem. What word do we know today that is derived from Shem? Yeah. Anti-Semitic. When you say someone is anti-Semitic, it's anti-Shem, descendants of Shem. That includes the Arabs, that includes the Israelis, that includes Jordanians. I mean, all those people are Semitic tribes.
It used to mean that. It used to mean against that general group of people.
Yep, that group of people. But Yafet was the other son. I want to talk about Yafet for a little bit. Yafet is a word that in Hebrew means Yafa now means beautiful. And so Jewish tradition is that Yafet was a very handsome son of Noah. And so then here's a cool story that in Israel there is a beautiful gate. And it's even described in the New Testament that the beautiful gate. It's the gate of Yafa. It's the gate, the Jaffa gate today is known as, it's the beautiful gate. It's the same gate as the Bible is talking about when it talks about the beautiful gate. It's the gate they call today the gate of Jaffa. Jaffa gate leads to a road called Jaffa Road. And Jaffa Road leads to a town on the coast of the Mediterranean called Jaffa. And this is the town that Jonah goes to escape. And God says, go west. Jonah heads east.
Straight east.
Oh, straight east. Sneaking me some crackers? Yeah, you're my favorite. And he went down to Jaffa. The
not happy anywhere else. She just wants to be right next to Troy with food.
She wants to tempt you.
Hey.
Good looking cracker after 24 hours of no food, huh?
We made a connection at the Joshua Aaron concert, and she just now remembered. So anyway, that's kind of cool. He went to the town that's known as the Beautiful Town. It leads onto a beautiful road that goes to the beautiful gate that takes you into the temple courts. So, anything else? And then just for Ryan's sake, not for anybody else's, in the town of Jaffa, your favorite story took place?
Oh, about the Peter on the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Simon.
That's where Peter was staying when Cornelius sent his men to go get him.
Yep.
And of course, at that point, Peter would probably have not accepted a trip to go see some Gentile Roman legionnaire, and but God had given him the vision of the sheep and said, "Nope, don't call unclean what I've called clean."
Yeah.
And the next thing he wakes up and he hears knocking on the door. There's the men saying, "Come see our master."
That's right. That takes place in the town of Jaffa. Yeah. And Simon Peter was staying at the house of Simon the tanner. And we got to see the house this past year when we were there over a year ago. The house of Simon the tanner right there on the
Hopefully
coast.
it didn't smell as bad as it did back then.
No.
It was not a lovely
Smelling of brains and such.
And at the conclusion of our trip, I got my leather Bible cover from a tanner. So it was like perfect bookends for my trip. All right. Stormy conditions are okay. He fell asleep. Verse 6, continue on, Becca.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Thank you.
The captain went to him and said, "How can you sleep? Get up and call on your God. Maybe he will take notice of us so that we will not perish. Then the sailors said to each other, "Come, let us cast lots to find out who is responsible for this calamity." They cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. So they asked him, "Tell us, who is responsible for making all this trouble for us? What kind of work do you do? Where do you come from? What is your country? From what people are you?" He answered, "I am a Hebrew, and I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land."
We'll stop there. That's verse 10, right? Okay. Yeah, and send the microphone that direction. That way, Lev will have to.
Everybody's gonna get a chance.
Right. Lev will be the last one to get to read. That'll be.
The first shall be last, and the last shall be first.
So I just noticed that they said they drew lots, and Jonah was signaled out. That's not the first time today you heard about lots. When else did you hear about lots? That is true.
In Psalms 22.
But did you hear that today? No, that's fine. No, that's fine. No, that's a great answer. That's a great answer. When we talked about Lot's daughters.
Yeah, I was gonna say we've talked about Lot at some point, but not casting lots.
I don't think that's the same Hebrew word, but it's definitely the same English word. That's a good one. Oh, that's a good one. Anybody else? Azazel, yes. They cast lots. They had two goats, and one would be the goat unto who? One is to Azazel, and the other is to Adonai. Yeah. Okay. Which one died? Yeah.
They both died.
They both died. That's true. Not originally.
One got to go free.
Yes. Yep. Anything else jump out at anybody? Anybody got more comments?
I think it's just interesting that he's saying he's a Hebrew here, because later, like Paul says, Paul's always calling himself a Jew, but he mentions like a couple times he's from the tribe of Benjamin. So at this time, they were still kind of differentiating Hebrew, Israelite, just the different tribes. But by Yeshua's time and Paul's time, everyone was just considered that umbrella term under Jewish, even if they weren't from the tribe of Judah.
Uh-huh.
Historical note.
Yes. Cast lots to replace Judas. And who was the one that was selected? Is it? Anybody remember?
Was
when
it
they cast
Bartholomew?
lots to be Matthias.
Matthias.
I thought it was Matthias.
Matiyahu.
Yeah, we need two of those.
Ready?
And then I just thought it was interesting. Who didn't get it? Who didn't get picked? I think he's like the most forgotten man in the Bible.
Well, that's what I was saying. I think it's like. Oh, Barsabbas is. Okay.
Okay.
I'm sure he had a good impact and a good name after that. So.
Exactly. Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
This terrified them, and they asked, "What have you done?" They knew he was running away from the Lord because he had already told them so. The sea was getting rougher and rougher, so they asked him, "What should we do to make the sea calm down for us?" "Pick me up and throw me into the sea," he replied, "and it will become calm. I know that it is my fault that this great storm has come upon you." Instead, the men did their best to row back to the land, but they could not, for the sea grew even wilder than before. Then they cried to the Lord, "Oh, Lord, please do not let us die for taking this man's life. Do not hold us accountable for killing an innocent man, for you, O Lord, have done as you pleased." Then they took Jonah and threw him overboard, and the raging sea grew calm. And at this the men greatly feared the Lord, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows to him. But the Lord provided a great fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was inside the fish 3 days and 3 nights.
Very good.
We should watch the VeggieTales Jonah story. We have it on DVD.
Yeah, throwing all the furniture and all that.
Yeah.
I was gonna throw out the possibility that when he told them, "Pick me up and throw me into the sea," that was Jonah declaring that he would rather die and he'd rather commit suicide than to pray to God to calm the storm and for him to get off the ship and complete his mission. That I would suggest that it was actually an attempt at suicide. That's what he was declaring, that I'd rather die than.
Kind of makes sense because he was a coward. So instead of jumping over himself, he's like, "You guys have to do it because I don't have the guts to do it." So
Right.
there you go.
Suicide by cop.
I don't know why it made me think of whenever it was where they said, "Here I am, send me." I don't know why. I always thought when he said for them to throw him over that it was like he was trying to help them by not dying. But that's probably definitely not what it was. Anyways.
I think in his mind, he was doing both. Like, if I can commit suicide and save everyone else, then it'll be a win-win. I want out. They want to stay alive. Yeah. That's it, yeah. Chapter 2.
Now Adonai prepared a great fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Then Jonah prayed to Adonai his God from the belly of the fish, saying, "From my distress I cried to Adonai, and he answered me. From the belly of Sheol I cried for help, and you heard my voice. For you hurled me from the deep into the heart of the seas, and currents swirled around me. All your waves and your breakers swept over me. And I said, I have been banished from before your eyes, yet I will continue to look toward your holy temple. Waters surrounded me up to my soul. The deep sea engulfed me. Reeds clung to my head. To the bottoms of the mountains I went, and the earth with her bars was around me forever. Yet you brought my life up from the pit, Adonai my God. As my soul was fading from me, I remembered Adonai, and my prayer came to you before your holy temple. Those who watch worthless, empty things forsake their mercy. But I, with a voice of thanks, will sacrifice to you. What I vowed, I will pay. Salvation is from Adonai. Then Adonai spoke to the fish, and it vomited Jonah onto the dry land. My Bible has a cool picture of that.
Ooh.
Blah. It is like a whale shark. So, anyway. Didn't.
It's not really the moral of the story.
Well, it's an interesting side note.
Doesn't they mention it? Isn't it because the leper Naaman came from Nineveh, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like in the book, like in the Jonah movie. We worship the great fish. Remember that. The day is gone when you shall slap with fish. Now you shall be clean.
Ham is still unkosher, but fish is now clean.
Oh.
So the word fish in Hebrew in 2:1 in what?
Oh my.
Hi, Alia's mom.
Oh my goodness.
Muy bonita. Join us. So we were talking about fish, and in Jonah 2:1, it said Adonai prepared a huge fish, and in that one, the Hebrew for that is dag, which is a masculine fish. And Jonah 2:2, from the belly of a fish, that is the Hebrew word, it's the feminine form of fish, which is daga, I think. So that's very interesting, because was the big fish a female or a male? But Jewish tradition tells us, this is just Jewish tradition, but it's kind of a funny story. There are two fish. The first fish is in verse 1 speaks of a male fish, but Jonah was too mad and wouldn't talk to God. So the first fish spat him up, and Jonah was swallowed by a second fish. The second was a female pregnant fish, which made Jonah much more uncomfortable because there was less room with eggs in the belly. So he finally cried out to God. So that's Jewish tradition. But so just a thought, but
Now we know caviar is not kosher. God offered him caviar. He refused to take it.
Well,
The real salvation issue. Where's the mic?
yeah. In Florida.
Salvation issue. Was the fish that swallowed Jonah kosher? That's what matters here.
Well, see, there we go too. Because in Florida, if you went fishing years ago, you used to be able to catch, which is called the giant sea bass, but years ago it was called the Jewfish. Yeah, they found it like I don't know, like the Redskins, you know, the football. Now they're it's offensive. Yeah. So it's but they used to have a fish called the Jewfish. It doesn't say he's.
Yeah, well, we got a lot of things from Hitler's stories and Besora, such as the wandering Jew plant. It really was not a wandering Jew, it's an inch plant. The whole story is.
Bless you.
It's a dark story, yeah.
What is it? It's a plant?
Yeah.
What is an itch a plant?
An inch plant. So there's if you take the plant.
She doesn't have a microphone, so stop listening to her.
Here you go, Anna.
So where do you want me to back up to?
I don't know, but
Well, he was talking about the fish that was found, and as a bad slang towards Jews being called the Jew fish, there's also a plant that's called the wandering Jew, which comes out of that same thing, that the Jew that killed Christ was left to wander the world as a zombie forever and ever, and then they named the plant after it. It's really called an inch plant because there's an inch between each set of leaves. Yeah, there you go.
I've got a couple things I was going to mention. And anybody else has something else they want to share, you can. I loved how Mallory read that. Out of my distress, I called to Adonai, and he answered me. From the belly of Sheol, from the belly of the grave, again, this idea that death by suicide, I cried, and you heard my voice. Later on in verse 6, it said, seaweed twined around my head, and that caused me to write down in the margin, just like Yeshua had a crown of thorns wrapped around his head. Did I steal yours?
No. I wanted to just add this in here.
Please.
So, a lot of people ask, why does Jesus walking on water? Why does Jesus walking on water have absolutely anything to do with him being the Messiah or the Son of God? Well, Yeshua walking on water was important because at the time, like it references here in Jonah, they were blown away when he said, my God made the sea and he made the land, right? If you controlled the sea, you controlled everything because it was life. Every society at that time was right by water, or it had a well. But as a rule, they were by water, so that's why it mattered that he could walk on water. It wasn't just a party trick that he could do that. It proved that he had control of that because his Father was the Most High.
Nice.
The demons that he cast out that went into the pigs went where?
Into the water. I was going to say it's also the same significance to parting the Red Sea in front of all the Egyptians. It had the same significance.
To add to that, an interpretation of water for me is back in Egypt, they were cast into the Nile of the water, and they were killed, right? The firstborn sons.
Right.
So water meant death, in a sense.
Both life and death.
So, yes. But Yeshua walking on water, he was literally stepping on and conquering death
Mm-hmm.
is a interpretation I like.
Perfect. Perfect. Yes. All right. In verse 9, it says, "Those who worship vain idols give up their source of mercy, but I, speaking my thanks aloud, will sacrifice to you what I have vowed." And so I think that's interesting that we're reading this on the day of Yom Kippur, the day following Kol Nidre, all vows. And so he's telling the Lord he will complete and he will fulfill all his vows. So that kind of why are we reading this on this holiday? Why didn't they have us read Joel? Why didn't they have us read Hezekiah? Or why didn't they have us read Micah? I know there is no book of Hezekiah. I just was wondering if you guys were paying attention. But why are we reading the book of Jonah? Because there's some tie-ins every once in a while. And so, and then Jonah declares, salvation comes from Adonai. And Yeshua's name means salvation. So he literally was declaring, Yeshua comes from Adonai. So all the way back, this idea of Yeshua coming from Adonai is spoken of. All right, continue the reading. Yep. Oh, of course.
So I just, especially if we're
We
if
should
we're
have
going
more notes than readings. That's how it should be.
if we're going with the theory that Jonah would rather die than go to Nineveh, then we just see a beautiful act of repentance right here.
Yeah.
Let's see. Now the word of Adonai came to Jonah a second time, saying, "Rise and go to Nineveh, the great city, and cry out the proclamation that I am telling you." So Jonah rose and went to Nineveh according to the word of Adonai. Now Nineveh was a great city to God, the length of a 3-day journey. So Jonah began to come to the city for 1 day's journey, and he cried out, saying, "Another 40 days, and Nineveh will be overthrown." When should I stop?
No. Don't pay attention to me. Somebody else tell her when to stop. I'm trying to find something else.
Then the people of Nineveh believed God and called for a fast and wore sackcloth, from the greatest of them to the least of them. When the word reached the king of Nineveh, he rose from his throne, took off his robe, covered himself in sackcloth, and sat in the ashes. He made a proclamation saying, "In Nineveh, by a decree of the king and his nobles, no man or beast, herd or flock may taste anything. They must not graze nor drink water. But cover man and beast with sackcloth. Let them cry out to God with urgency. Let each one turn from his evil way, from the violence of his hands. Who knows? God may turn and relent. Turn back from his burning anger, so that we may not perish." Then when God saw their deeds, they turned from their wicked ways. God relented from the calamity that he said that he would do to them, and did not do it.
Good. We're at chapter 4. Let's go back to the beginning of chapter 3. And any conversation, any discussion? I learned this last year. I think it was Miss Lavina that taught us this last year. But it talks about Nineveh. Now, Nineveh was such a large city that it took 3 days to cross it. And if you go to Genesis chapter 10, verse 11, Ashur went out from that land and built Nineveh, the city Rehovot, Chalach, and Rezin, between Nineveh and Chalach. That one is the great city. So the suburbs of Nineveh are so big that it gets recorded in Genesis chapter 10. So we're talking about a significant city, and many times we've had, help me think of her name, Colonel, Nurse, Elba. She was assigned to go into Iraq in the military, and she got to tour Nineveh. They took like groups of American soldiers to Nineveh, and they got to explore the ruins and the archaeological sites that they've been able to discover in Nineveh and stuff. So usually, if she's in this circle, she can usually talk for a good.
How big is the area?
Like
present day, what's left of it?
I think
it's
it's Mosul.
Mosul.
It's Mosul, Iraq right now, which is a massive city. When ISIS was at its heyday, they overtook Mosul. And for them, that was like, if we let them hold on to Mosul, there's nothing that would stop, Anyway, it's a big area. So, any other thoughts on that? Otherwise, continue on to, they proclaimed a fast and they put on sackcloth. Does proclaiming a fast make any connection with anybody today?
No, I'm not thinking
No, no, can't think of anything.
I'm too hungry to think.
Yeah. And by decree, the king and his nobles, no person or animal, herd or flock, is to put anything in his mouth. They are neither to eat or drink water. So that explains the kind of fast we're talking about. However, I had a very clear conversation with my dogs yesterday. I said, don't worry. I'm commanded to fast. You're not commanded to fast. And I fed my dogs yesterday and fed them this morning. And
You should have to feed your animals on a Sabbath.
Yep. So, but I just think that's interesting that it literally says don't drink water, and that's the type of fast I'm in the process of trying to keep. So, unless a little kid were to offer me a glass of water and I'd be required to drink it.
Oh, of course.
You don't count as a little kid. I know. I'm specifically asking occasion.
13? That's a teenager, so you're too old.
I think
Well,
one of
He's still 12. He might be.
I think one really great thing that stands out is how important and what a difference it makes to have a good leader over a city or a country.
Yeah.
Like if he didn't do it, then if he had rejected it, then the people would have rejected it. He led them into repentance.
Let them in.
So they only lasted, what, 3 years?
Yeah,
Were they
ended up
still under the
stick
same?
to it too
I
well,
was just
but
thinking, it wasn't long after that they went ahead and turned them and received judgment. Were they still under the same leadership?
it's a good question.
I don't know. I just hit me now because I was listening to it last night on a YouTube thing, and this city is huge compared to what they're saying they're finding archaeologically as cities, even where the pyramids are. Egypt was only like
Egypt proper was very small.
a mile
compared to
square.
the big city we have today.
Yeah, it was like a mile square. This is huge. So it was unusual to have that big of cities.
All right. Any more comments? Any more? One real quick question I want to ask Brian, who's keeping an eye on what time we should start Nila. Have you put any thought to when you would like to start the Nila service?
My initial time would be 4 minutes, but I gave us a gap, so we'll probably have about 10 to 15.
Then I've run out of things to talk about. Let's read. I'm just kidding. Yeah. Anybody else?
Well, if you insist.
I have a fun rabbit trail, just talking about Nineveh and archaeology. It was during the pandemic, wasn't it? It was 2020. We got to see these huge reliefs that they found, the archaeologists found, that were from Ashurbanipal's palaces. So that was a little bit before Jonah. This was before that time. They were super huge, and it was really amazing. So I have pictures if you want to see. But just reliving my museum experiences.
Yeah.
So part of recent archaeology, they uncovered a lot of grave sites, and of course they found the fish symbol on them. And we're asking the people about them that these people believed in Yeshua. There's the fish symbol. And instead, no, they believed in resurrection. The fish is the story of Jonah, and that's part of what's in our one new man.
Thank you. There's a good point.
And to talk on archaeology, just a second, but even dinosaur bones, we've never found an entire skeleton. They're still missing bones. They're all mixed together. Like, to talk about the size of Nineveh, yeah, it's huge. It's gotta be.
some would say Leviathan in size.
You're cracking me up.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Leviathan
Jonah's
tastes like
anger
chicken.
at the Lord's compassion. So when God's yes, that's so generous of you. When God saw what they did and how they turned from their evil ways, he had compassion and did not bring upon them the destruction he had threatened. But Jonah was greatly displeased and became angry. He prayed to the Lord, "O Lord, is this not what I said when I was still at home? This is why I was so quick to flee to Tarshish. I knew that you are gracious and compassionate God, slow to anger and abounding in love, a God who relents from sending calamity. Now, O Lord, take away my life, for it is better for me to die than to live." But the Lord replied, "Have you any right to be angry?" Jonah went out and sat down in the place east of the city. There he made himself a shelter, sat in the shade, and waited to see what would happen to the city. Then the Lord God provided a vine and made it grow up over Jonah to give shade for his head, to ease his discomfort, and Jonah was very happy about the vine. But at dawn the next day, the God provided a worm, which chewed the vine so that it withered. When the sun... Don't laugh. But God said to Jonah, "Do you have the right to be angry about the vine?" "I do," he said. "I am angry enough to die." But the Lord said, "You have been concerned about this vine, though you did not tend to it or make it grow. It sprang up overnight and died overnight. But Nineveh has more than 120,000 people who cannot tell their right hand from their left, and many cattle as well. Should I not be concerned about that great city?" So, since we're laughing, I got to tell you, in truth, the only thing I was thinking about when the worm came into it was the worm from the Jonah movie.
Any comments coming off the final chapter?
It's kind of like what I was saying earlier about us having the heart of Abraham to the angel of the Lord, for the people in the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah to hearken that feeling of like, please, Lord, just for the soul of one. The Lord is basically saying that to Jonah right here. Jonah, on the opposite, disregarded every single soul of Nineveh, didn't care for a single one of them, to the point that he wanted to die multiple times instead of foster these people. So the Lord is then saying to him, you won't even tend to a gourd or to this vine that I've provided for you, yet all these souls here need to be provided for. They need the caring and tending to, just the same way this vine did. The Lord is sending him back again into Nineveh again, even though his heart was still contrite against them. Even in the end of this, after everything, he's still being sent back again to tend for these souls that he was against and trying to watch from afar.
So it seems to me we have to guard our hearts and minds against that deep a hatred. So I can't say it wouldn't be impossible that the group of people that came in 2 years ago to Israel and killed all those people, you could hate them that much and not want God to save them, and yet we still want them saved. He does. He wants all men to be saved.
It's a very good point. I think in regard to that point, like if we were having this conversation 10 years ago, we would have probably had to use like Nazis or something. How could you think of a group of people that would cause you so much anger and hatred that you'd have a hard time forgiving them and wanting them to repent? But then after October 7th, which is almost 2 years ago, all of a sudden a fresh picture of a villain can enter the mind and brings it closer to home, a little bit easier to understand.
I would say 10 years ago in society, we had more of a focus on like the LGBTQ community, still abortion, stuff like that. Those are still the same feelings of hatred we feel towards people, or people have towards others. Instead of praying for them, we tend to lean towards hatred of them, of their behaviors, instead of loving the person and trying to love on them instead. I would say it's still, even though our focus does go towards Gaza and Israel and everything that's happened between them. Within our own borders, we still face a lot of vileness and hatred and bitterness towards each other, where we tend as people to go beyond our borders to pray for people instead of the people within our borders, within our state, within our cities, who almost need it more sometimes because we've ignored them more. So I agree with you, Troy. I'm just saying I think there is even still presently in front of us more to pray for and to minister to still.
I'm not sure if anybody noticed a word I inserted in the liturgy today. It wasn't on the screen. I know there was some mix-ups on slideshows and things like that, but I'm not referring to some of the obvious mistakes there. But this was an intentional word that I put into a slide, and I'm not sure if it went over everybody. Huh? Oh, okay. I did it twice. So that's not the one I was thinking of, but I almost wrote that one in. Like, I want to remember that one. Even after the hostages are freed, I want us to remember what it was like when we had hostages. But there was a slide that says, annihilate our enemies. And I changed it to your enemies. Yeah, Lev picked up on it. God has commanded us to love our... Oh, honey. Good job, honey. To love our enemies and pray for those that persecute us. And so I just felt like that slide, even though that's traditional Jewish slide and stuff, that's how it's written, I just felt like a correction would be, we're not commanded to love God's enemies, and we're not commanded to pray for God's enemies, but we are commanded to pray for our enemies. So that's why I switched it from our to your in that one slide. So if that went over your heads, that's okay, but keep that in mind as we go through this in years to come, that we want to be careful. Yeah, exactly. Anything else to finish up, Jonah?
I recommend David Foreman's video have you ever watched it? It's really good for Yom Kippur. It's very deep, but it's good. But back in Jonah 4:2, Jonah is quoting from the 13 attributes of compassion, which you can find
we read those today.
There with the golden calf story. And when he quotes it, this is all from David Foreman. He's the one that I learned it from. But he left out truth. When Jonah's quoting that, he left out God of truth. And that is because he felt like, this is what David Foreman feels like, he felt like the way God was handling Nineveh, that he was not being a God of truth, because in the end he felt like, well, they're bad people, they're going to get the consequences they deserve. And so he was upset because they weren't going to get the consequences they deserved. So, and this kind of goes with what Faith was saying. Just a little story, and it still means we should think differently. But he ended, one of his things was saying, he was talking about a skit, and he said, in hell sits Hitler, Toby, and Sophia. Toby is a good Jew, but cannot forgive Hitler. Sophia is the voice of God. Hitler starts to think he wants to do teshuvah. This upsets Toby so much. He would rather not be in heaven if Hitler's going to be in heaven. So let's think about it and bring it a little closer to home. One of your family's members is brutally raped by a criminal. The police find him, DNA evidence. The criminal goes to court, and a judge comes to you and says he's sorry, although there is nothing he can do to fix it, but the judge wants you to forgive him and let him go free. How would you feel? Even worse, let's say you had a dream and God asked you to forgive him and let him go free. Wouldn't you feel worse? When it was the judge, you could at least say someday the criminal will get what he deserves, and now God's asking you, will you let him go free? So it's kind of like that. That story meant a lot to me when I heard it. So
I just wanted to add, so we all saw what happened with Charlie Kirk, of course. His wife was able to forgive him. And while, yes, it's true, as Troy says, we are not commanded to forgive God's enemies, it is important that we bear in mind God's enemies are the people who go against the state of Israel. Our enemies are people who hurt us. So, and that includes even people who are of the most vile type.
And who is forgiveness for? It's not for the victim.
Microphone. Microphone.
So our founding fathers, one of the very first trials that they held, that the man was sentenced to death, that jury spent a good deal of time praying for that man's soul, because of their understanding that he had to face the consequences of his bad actions, but he didn't have to face eternal death if he would just accept Christ.
Her tummy is not empty. Mine sounds much worse. But I think that will conclude our Jonah study. I messed up because in chapter 3 I should have stopped and we should have done something, because I want to be more like Mallory when I grow up. And we should have stopped at chapter 3 and pray that we would have leaders that would be quick to repent and lead our countries in the path of repentance. So, Avinu Malkeinu, our Father and our King, we just pray, Lord, for leaders all around this world, Lord, that nations would be led by men who would be quick to respond to your call of repentance. Lord, that they would be leaders and set the stage and set the pattern, and that we would follow leaders that have a heart for you and a heart for repentance, Lord. I pray that you would grow them up, in every country, and that there would be a people eager to respond to your repentance, following a leader who has set the course and has set the example. Lord, we just pray that Jonah chapter 3 can be fulfilled in all of our lives, in all of our home countries where we have family and loved ones. And we just pray, Lord, that a spirit of repentance would begin to permeate this world, and that it would especially come to fruition in the leaders of our world. Ask all this, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen. All right, we're going to now take a short little break. Ryan's going to get started for the Nila service. If you have shofars, get them out, get them ready, and get them handy. We have to get the chairs reconfigured back into synagogue formation, and we'll probably put a pause to this YouTube stream, and so we'll be saying goodbye to YouTube at this point, and then you won't get to watch us put the chairs away, but that's okay. And then we'll call you guys back. You guys will find a new stream for Nila here shortly. All right. Mr. Lev.